I'm Coach Ant.
I'm Coach T, and we're fans that know some.
And first, we want you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. This is for the fans, by the fans. Coach T and I, we bring 30 plus years of experience in sports, whether that's coaching, playing as athletes, training from all levels, and also just being diving into the analytics of sports. We are bringing that true information to you guys. But again, we're also fans of the game, right?
Definitely that.
So
first and foremost,
so that's what it's all about. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in, man. Let's get it.
Okay. So we're going to start with football.
All right. Yep.
As a Steelers fan, I already know how you feel about Aaron Rodgers. Okay. As far as like you guys going into that direction. Now, first of all, just real quick, is it a good move or not?
I have to preface this, man, and tell you why I think it's not good or bad.
Okay, so before you do that, all
Yeah.
right, because a lot of people, they're going to say, well, everyone has their own opinion. Every fan, they're going to talk about the age and so forth and so on. But I really want you to break down and use like your football knowledge and really from an analytical standpoint of why the organization made that move. Because these guys, the organization, they're professional, they're NFL, they know the game. So obviously they saw see something that makes sense. I want you to break down from an analytical standpoint why you feel your Steelers made that move.
Yeah, that's perfect, man, because I get to put my coach's hat on,
right,
and my fan hat at the same time.
Right.
So I want to take you through on a little journey, right?
Okay.
You might want to ask yourself, why would Tomlin bring in a guy like Arthur Smith first and foremost? And then we'll get to the Aaron Rodgers piece, right?
Okay.
Little nugget for you. Did you know Arthur Smith started as a defensive coach first? Yeah, defensive coach right out of his internship with Ole Miss, right, as a defensive, what you would call quality and control coach.
Gotcha.
So he went from there to defensive coach with the Titans. He was a defensive assistant.
Okay.
Eventually became the tight end coach. That was his intro into offense.
Into the offensive side. Gotcha.
So he had tight ends for almost 2 seasons, and then moved right into offensive coordinator, and I think in 2011, right?
Okay.
So from just knowing that, Tomlin being a defensive coach, defensive-minded coach,
right?
Now you have an offensive coach or offensive coordinator who started off in defense and has an understanding of what defense is trying to do.
Gotcha.
Right, to your offense. So bring that to current state. His philosophy is predominantly a run-first offense, basically and specifically a zone scheme. So you need elusive backs, right? That ties into Jaylen Warren and the new guy, Caleb, right?
Right.
All right. Now, looking at his offenses, he's had maybe two dominant seasons as an offensive coordinator, right? You had 2019 and you had 2020. Who was his running back then? Can you tell me?
Bell?
No, not
you said
Bell.
2020?
Yeah, for the Titans.
Oh, for the Titans. My bad. I'm thinking you're talking about
his 2 best years as offensive coordinator was 2019, 2020. Who was his running back?
Henry.
Derrick Henry. Yeah. Exactly. 2019, 1,500 yards, a little bit over like 15 touchdowns, right? Dominated the AFC that year. You had A.J. Brown as your number 1 receiver. You parallel that to today with DK Metcalf, right? 2 number 1s. All right? That's what you hope will happen when that kind of style he would bring to a Steelers offense, right? So I want to say again, his philosophy, run first, and then he wants to go deep shots off of play action, specifically across the middle of the field with athletic tight ends and their number 1 receiver, right? So with that, you have to pair that with the number 2 receiver, which we don't have with the Steelers right now, right?
Okay.
So we're still searching for that number 2 receiver that will complete his philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which ties into why I think this won't work. We are still fishing around for offensive weapons. Does that make sense to you? Well, let me break it down a little bit further.
Okay.
All right. You got rid of Pickens after you brought DK Metcalf in. Now you're hoping that Roman Wilson, second-year player, you're hoping that he can make that sophomore leap without any experience. He doesn't have a snap in the NFL right now because he came in hurt. He didn't play it down.
Gotcha.
So now that tells you why we're trying to bring in these veterans or a solid number 2 receiver to help complement that run pass, balance.
Gotcha.
You brought in a Rod Woods. Rod Woods is coming off of a 200-yard season. I mean, is he just Van Jefferson? Is he Van Jefferson all over again? We got rid of Van Jefferson. We got rid of Pickens. We brought in Rod Woods. Did we really get better there? Now, you brought in Aaron Rodgers, prolific passer. Love him, man. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the issue? Our issue was scoring points last year, right? Yeah, he could come in. He can probably get you 4,000 yards. That's fine. But where are the weapons that you're going to get him the ball besides DK Metcalf?
And my thing is, how would he get 4,000 yards without the weapons?
Exactly. So now you're seeing where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're bringing in a philosophy to bring that balance, why don't we have the weapons that makes you capable of having that type of balance, right?
So again, you're saying like everything that you just laid out. You're saying you believe they think that will be the difference maker.
Yes.
That balance will be what they need to get over the hump.
Exactly. That's what they're hoping. And that's why it would make sense to a Steeler organization. If you think back to those teams where we were dominant, we had balance. You had that number 1 receiver. You had that number 2 receiver. You had Jerome Bettis. You had Rashard Mendenhall at times, the 1-2 punch. You could run the ball effectively. We still have unknowns at offensive line, right? Fatanu, he just came back from a knee. He played a few snaps last season. Mm-hmm. You don't know how that's going to go. Brings up protection for Rodgers. I mean, he's older. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you think about the defenses that we're going to play this year, 1 year removed from an Achilles, we play teams that really get after the quarterback. You have Myles Garrett twice this year. You play yeah. I'm not afraid to say it, man. He's already on the record saying he wants to put this guy in the graveyard. You know what I mean? Goodness. So you got him twice this year. Just listen to this. You have Myles Garrett twice. You have Greenert and Van Ginkel from the Vikings. You have Benito, Jonathan Cooper from Denver Broncos that you're going to face this year. You have Leonard Williams, Seahawks, right? Mm-hmm. All teams that can get after the quarterback,
mm-hmm.
and you're banking on having enough protection to where he won't have to be elusive back there.
But again, you got the guys that make the big bucks, the guys that are paid to make these decisions, the people that have all the knowledge, they have all the analytics.
Yep.
They made this move. And again, like, why?
I just told you they're banking on Rodgers being able to get them
those
over
analytics
the hump.
They feel like every box that we've checked is saying, okay, that balance
is what's going to get us over the hump.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Go ahead. Let me say this before you ask that, and couple that with an already solid defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know we have issues right now with Watt not holding out and not signing his extension yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get done. After that's out the way, you have one of the top defenses, if not the best defense in the AFC North, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the top in the AFC, period. So you couple that with the fact you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Hall of Famer. That's a lot better than what we had prior to the start of minicamp. You were looking at possibly having to start a Rudolph or the young boy
mm-hmm.
in the interim until you had a decision. But another thing that has recently piqued my interest is maybe this was a move to the organization forward move, right? In the previous AFC shows, we touched on quarterbacks not coming in and wanting to leave the organization in a good position. Mm-hmm. He wants to mentor the young quarterbacks. He's already come out and said it in his interviews. Mm-hmm. He wants to mentor them. That's the only positive that I can see going forward. That could, be a reason why the organization ultimately said this was probably the best move. Mm-hmm. Although the third move that, they eventually got, probably the best move just to move the organization forward.
But my thing is this, we talked about the Steelers and, facing that mediocrity stamp.
Yeah.
As far as barely making it in the playoffs, but getting in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think, though, it's part of the political side of the game? Because there's politics in professional sports, right? So by having Aaron Rodgers, you still have the name cachet. By bringing Aaron Rodgers to your team, despite his age, it gives the feel and appearance that, okay, we are in contention.
Absolutely.
Versus, if you have a rookie quarterback or you have a quarterback who hasn't been proven to win yet, it almost seems like this move eliminates that type of, scrutiny, so to speak. When, if you have a quarterback that it just keeps you, it makes it look like, okay, you're moving towards.
My sentiment with this is, did we really get better? You can put a sheet over my face, but I'm still me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can patch up, a cut, but it still bleeds underneath, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what this feels like to me. Like you're patching up wounds because you missed opportunities. You knew right off the bat, Arthur Smith has been on the record saying he wanted an elusive quarterback, right? That's because of who we play. You got to have one. You know what I mean? And I'm away from the Justin Fields hurt. I'm not going to mention it anymore after this. So he's gone. We moved on. But again, you want to give the appearance that you're dangerous at any time. Can he still throw the ball? Yes, but can you protect him? Those are just going to be the questions until we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah. But we still don't have the weapons necessary, or else you wouldn't see headlines saying we're targeting a Jonnu Smith, who is an elusive tight or an athletic tight end. We were trying to target an Olave, trying to bring in a number two, some type of number two receiver who can complement DK, because if we don't, all you do is double him and take him out of the game. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you this, though. Do you think it could be a situation where it's just a better fit? Like maybe it's the better fit for Justin to be with the Jets. Maybe that balance is a better fit for Rodgers to be with the Steelers.
It remains to be seen. Like, I'm not as mad at it as I was before, but there are reports coming out still that the locker room has rallied around Rudolph because he was in, OTAs. You know what I mean? He's been there. They're not looking at Rodgers as the savior. To me, that says Rodgers hasn't earned the locker room's respect yet.
Gotcha.
So
that could be an issue.
So it's everything is just predicated on how the rest of this offseason and mini camp plays out, right? We could very well become an established dominant. That's all predicated on everybody remaining healthy. We have questions at that.
That might be I
hear you.
Dominant.
I'm just saying, like that's with anyone. Anyone.
I feel you.
If they want to be dominant, it's all predicated on health. We still have holes. That we don't really know because the depth. We got rid of some pretty good defensive linemen and got compensation for those and picks, but I don't know anything about our depth chart on O-line. I know McCormick. I've seen him play a couple of times, but we don't know how he'll step up in a starting role. You know what I mean? We know what Frazier is as a center. He's going to be pretty good, but like I said, you got 77 who's moving back to his left tackle role. that's going to put him up, match him up against those dominant blind side D ends that are, he's going to have to face that every game.
So I mean, you're pointing out like a lot of concerns. So with that being said, right?
Yeah.
Say Rodgers has a decent season, but you guys pretty much have a similar exit.
Yeah.
What happens with Tomlin? Is it time for a new voice? We're not saying everybody knows he's not a bad coach.
Yeah.
But sometime, is it time for a new voice? And also the way the organization makes those moves. Like, is it time for a new shift? Just like music, there's trends, things change. Is it time for a change?
I understand exactly what you're saying. And I would have to say yes, because to me, this is an act of desperation. You know what I mean? You've established a defense, right? Mm-hmm. You brought in several what you would call seasoned quarterbacks with Wilson. Mm-hmm. You brought in Trubisky thinking he would come in and be able to be that veteran presence.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And now you missed out on trying to get the guy up there in the Rams first. You wanted him first. You debacled with Fields. We all know that.
Right.
And now you're at your third option with what you would call past his prime Aaron Rodgers, right? So if this doesn't work, to me, that resoundingly says it's time for a change.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.